Good evening, Reds from around the world. I am Dan for the LFC Transfer Room and your host today. I'm had the lovely Kev, Kings, and Dylan. It is so nice to have these three with me today. It's been a while since I've had a stream with Kev. Kings, I did one a couple weeks ago, and Dylan, it's our first stream together. Today, guys, we're going to go over the topics of the international break, talk a little bit about Trent Alexander-Arnold's performance against Finland for the mighty Lions of England, Harvey Elliott's injury as broke first by Indy Kyla after his shift at KFC last night, also broke by Paul Joyce today for the Times, UK Times. We'll then also look at the upcoming games. We have 7 games between now and the next international break. Talk about our options and currently where our squad stands, and then talk a little bit about the new Champions League format and preview a couple of those games before. So first off, I just want to hear how everyone's doing. Kev, first off for you, it has been a long time since we've actually done a stream together. A lot has happened. I believe we were at the time we had a stream together. We had a title race. The title race fell apart. Klopp left. We got a new Baldy in charge. We made 2 transfers, and yeah, just a lot's happened. So how are you doing? Are you enjoying the season so far? Are you ready for some more slot ball?
I am. It's a shame that the first international break came too soon. I think it's one of those times where you're damned, and when you're playing well, you don't want it to stop. But when you're not playing well, you do. So no, it's nice to be on with you, Dan, and obviously with Kings and Dylan as well. It's been a while with Dylan as well. But no, all good, mate. All good. How are you? We all good. Firing.
Oh yeah, no, I've very much been enjoying this. I've enjoyed the fact that my Ryan Gravenberch as a double pivot 6 shout has been proven right, and I'm gonna cash that check in the bank as much as I can until I'm proven wrong, because that was my biggest shout last year during our transfers podcast over the summer. Kings, it's been a while. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. I'm enjoying just waiting for the football to come back. I'm not a lover of Wednesday international break, I've got to be honest. It's not my favourite. I love the Premier League and, footy like that, not slow international football. But so I'm glad to get this weekend, coming fast straight at us, and hopefully a good win for the Reds.
Yeah, did you watch the England-Finland game? I've only mostly seen the highlights. Do you watch any international football? We were talking about that beforehand. International football is very, I watch the tournaments and that's about it. You weren't clocked into the England-Finland fiascos.
No, I didn't watch it, because if I was going to watch any international football, I'll watch my home country of Wales. I wouldn't watch England anyway.
Fair enough. So now we have 2 Welshmen, a Scouse, and an American all on the same podcast. This is very much the anti-England podcast out here today. And Dylan, I'll pass to you.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm saying that as an American. That's what we're here for. And this is not a pro-England international team here, which is perfectly fine, because even England supporters are very anti-England international team. Dylan, I know it's the first one together. My second Welshman for the day. Have you enjoyed having Craig Bellamy in charge of Wales so far? Have you been enjoying what you're seeing from the Welsh international team? It's going to be new. It's going to be new for them now that Gareth Bale is he officially retired now?
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
So,
it's very new. It's a completely different style of football. I think they've done all right. The first 2 games, the first game was 0-0. Then the second game Monday night they won 2-1. They were quite lucky to win on Monday. I think they went 2-0 up after 2 or 3 minutes, and I think after that, they let it slip a little bit. Definitely in the second half, I think Montenegro were more into it. They got a goal back, and I think we were lucky to finish at 2-1 in the end. But no, it's very new. It's a very new setup, so I think we'll see how it goes. But I can see it getting better, and there's players like Harry Wilson that really shone over the 2 games, I think. And it's a shame we let him go, but there we go.
how did Lewis Kumas? Did he start these 2? Because I couldn't remember if he was Welsh or not. Did he start these last 2 international games?
He didn't start the first game, but he started the second game, and he was all right. He's again, new for him as well, coming into a new setup and trying to impress. I think he was okay. He didn't make many mistakes, so I think there's more to come from him, I think, as things go on.
Yeah, because he's been tearing up at Stoke, and he looks like one of the promising youth players that could come to fruition in the future. If nothing else, be sold on, but he could also be a starter eventually for Liverpool. Maybe it's like maybe some FA Cup. FA Cup games. Alrighty, so just for everyone watching on X and YouTube, make sure you head over to the YouTube channel to hit like and subscribe so I can see your comments. For everyone who is watching on X/Twitter, and if you hop over there, I will actually be able to see your comments if you want to get involved in the stream and the chat as we go through each topic today. Like I said before, we're going to talk a little bit about the international break, just a little bit more in depth about our players, mostly Ryan Gravenberch and Trent Alexander-Arnold. And then we'll talk more of the reported injuries coming out, Harvey Elliott, Alexis McAllister, and then we'll look at previewing the next 7 games over the next 3 weeks. So yeah, make sure you, as JMU says, Arne Slot and Kev says, smash those likes, and Klopp will also appreciate it as well. And also, I forgot to say this is technically the, what is it now, 23 years since the attacks on September 11th, 2001. So obviously this is the 9/11 Memorial Day. Always a important time in American history and one of the most foundational events. We're not going to talk about it obviously in more depth, but just to remind everyone that is going on today. So obviously, I'll keep a thought in mind for everyone whose families were affected on that day 23 years ago. With that being said, let's move on to Trent. So Trent just started this weekend for the English versus Finland. He ended up recording an assist, and I think now the stats are that he has more assists than Kyle Walker or Kieran Trippier with, I think, a third of the minutes than either has played at right back. I can't, there's no way to say this. How much of a failure is it on Gareth Southgate's tenureship as not Liverpool manager, as England manager, that he could not find a way to make Trent Alexander-Arnold work at right back? Dylan, I'll throw it back to you since I heard you last. What are your thoughts on how Trent has done so far and the absolute, how to put this, the absolute garbage that Gareth Southgate and the English media have said about Trent over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I did watch either of the England games, but the game last night, he had an assist, and did he pass the ball on for Madueke to get the assist for the second goal? He created the second goal.
Yeah, he pretty much was in the build-up.
Yeah,
and then against Ireland, he had that long pass to Gordon that Gordon should have scored.
To Gordon. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think he was a bit of a scapegoat during the Euros, wasn't he? Every time it wasn't working for England, they took him off, and it was kind of his fault that it wasn't working. It is, he is probably the best right back in the world, definitely in the Premier League at the moment. And the stats prove it. The stats show that. There's no question. And it is damning on Southgate that he couldn't get him to work in that position when he's clearly better than Walker, clearly better than Trippier. And the fact that he couldn't get him to work is a joke, really.
And this is why Gareth Southgate should be the next manager of Manchester United, because he's so tactically brilliant. He will just make sure Manchester United are so successful after Erik ten Hag leave. Kev, I'll ask you this. Obviously, being scouts from the Liverpool area, from the Merseyside area, in my experience as someone who has watched England and Liverpool players over the past since 2005, 6, 7, 8, a lot of the media and a lot of the managers especially English managers at times, apart from maybe Sven-Goran Eriksson and maybe a handful of others, there's always seems this ability that if things go wrong with England, it's the Scouse players' fault. Gerrard getting blamed, I think, before the past. Wayne Rooney at times not fulfilling his potential. The golden generation, as it's called, is seen as like ultimately a failure. Do you think one of the reasons that Trent was one blamed and two Gareth didn't really put him was because of his attachment to Liverpool, because it's such an easy thing to play on within the English media? I'm just an outsider looking in on this, but I just want to hear what your thoughts are on it.
It's probably one of a combination of factors. I think there's a reluctance to play Trent in that position. I think it stems back to that bad performance against Man United where Rashford does him at Old Toilet and we get beat 2-0. I've got a feeling it's got something to do with that. Gary Neville's comments, the media's comments, commentators commentating on them. They always make out as though Trent isn't capable. When if you look at his record at Liverpool, he's played against Mbappe about 4 times already. He's played against the best in the world in the Champions League. And he seems to deal with those nights a lot better than, a few. Don't get me wrong, he hasn't been the best defensively, but it's a failing on them, and using excuses is just getting away from the hiding from the problem that the coaches were inept at trying to adapt to a team that is capable to have a Trent in the team. Any other international team in the world would have loved to have a Trent at right back, and they wouldn't be regarding his defensive duties as a weakness. They'd be more using them as a deterrent. And you look at that sublime pass he plays on Saturday against Ireland, and although it's against Ireland, he does that week in, week out for us. So what the wax lyrical of them over the last 2 games, we get to see on a regular basis, and we know what he's capable of. Some aren't unwilling to admit that. Some are still waiting for Reece James to get his come back from injury to cause. But that's the issue you've got. It's the media. The media build him up as though he's defensively incapable. I wouldn't mind, but it's not as if he's in League Two. He's played Champions League football. He's played against the elite, and he's coped against the elite. It's just one-off games where he hasn't been defensively minded. But that being said, you could have, I think, an issue with the actual defensive setup in those situations as well. So it's not necessarily his fault to blame, but it's easy to blame someone, though, isn't it? They're always, with England media, there's always a culprit down the years. David Beckham's being used because they got beat against Argentina. It's Wayne Rooney against Portugal. There's endless examples of it through the years. It's just that they're unwilling to face the fact that they can't actually get someone of quality of Trent on that pitch, and it's a failing. And it goes back to the Lampard, Gerrard, and Scholes argument. That debate, you could get all three of them to play. A good manager would, a good coach would, and I think that's where the issue is.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point in that. I want to take the idea of the commentators, and Kings, I'll throw it to you. Does the fact that obviously Gary Neville being a failed manager, great commentator, just not when it comes to Manchester United and Liverpool, because the commentating landscape is so heavily dominated by former Manchester United players, if you look at who are the main Liverpool pundits that are mostly touted out by Sky Sports, it's Jamie Carragher, who I think usually does a pretty good job. Not always, but he usually does a pretty good job. And Graham Souness, really. I mean, John Barnes on occasion, but he usually does more Liverpool media. And there's really no one else from the recent Liverpool teams. Maybe Daniel Sturridge, but he came in way later in his Liverpool career, so he's probably one of the more recent additions. Do you think the fact that the commentating community has been so dominated by former Manchester United players has very much shaped the perception of Liverpool players like Trent, like Kev mentioned with the media and how the media goes after them? Do you think that bias has shaped how the criticism of Trent, that they have criticized him so much and so often that people get this perception that he's just this terrible defender with no upside? Or do you think that that's a little bit overblown?
The thing I find with a lot of Liverpool players who play for England, especially, if you listen to a lot of Scouse people, they will say we're Scouse, not English. A lot of people say that, and it's like, and that's fine. They're allowed their opinion of what they want. And I wonder if, because of that, the rest of the country and the media and the pundits all look at that and go, they don't really want to play for their country anyway, then, which is laughable. Of course, they all want to play for their country. And it's kind of like what Kev said, he's a fine player. We know that. We see him week in, week out. And I think that Kyle Walker only gets picked because he plays for Man City. And they're supposedly the top side who keep winning the league, so it's automatic to pick what they see as the best. And he isn't the best. It's just because he plays for the so-called best team. Of course, we'd all argue that as well. Any day of the week, I think he's better than Trippier. And it's proven, I think, time and time again that he's better than Kyle Walker. The narratives that the pundits give out all the time is similar. As soon as they say something, it becomes the topic of conversation in the pub with your mates, etc. And it just grows from there. It goes bigger and bigger and bigger until everybody just goes, yeah, did you hear what X pundit said? And then from then on, it's just more and more, it's bigger and bigger. And then it just becomes it's almost like a witch hunt. You know, they just kind of get on his back. But it's not even, like Kev said, you know, whether it's David Beckham or Rooney or whoever it is, they just seem to build somebody right up, and then they take great pleasure in picking somebody to knock them all the way back down again. I really don't understand it, because he's one of the best players that England could have in that position, and yet they're determined to kind of knock his confidence enough that he just, in the end, will be like, what's the point? I'll just do it for Liverpool week in, week out. And it's like, that's fine by me, because when players go away on international duty, I'm always worried they're going to get injured. So I don't want them to go anyway. But I just feel that it's easy to build them up as a top player, and they wax lyrical all the time, saying, oh, he's fantastic for Liverpool, he does this, he does that, see that ball he's played, etc., etc. And then as soon as he plays for the national side, they take great delight in knocking him back down. And I think, well, what's the point of him even turning up then if all you're going to do is berate him every time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why Trent might end up leaving Liverpool, is because the English media, the English press, and maybe go off to Madrid. I think it's been mentioned on a couple of other podcasts before that constant criticism from the media that you really can't escape to some degree, because it's always there. It's on the TV, it's on the socials. Even if you're not managing your socials, there's no way to block out and filter out all that information that is around you. And I could see someone like Trent being like, I've had enough of this. I'm just going to go play with my mate over at Madrid. Speaking of pundits, though, the Netherlands also played against Germany. They ended up losing 2-1, but they should have won. Their pundit, Rafael van der Vaart, formerly of Tottenham, I believe, and then before he went to Madrid, also gave a commentary on Ryan Gravenberch. Now, if anybody has not seen Ryan Gravenberch play in that game, he was absolutely fantastic, and he played this amazing Gerrard-esque, and I don't use that lightly, I know it gets thrown around a lot, half volley across the pitch to Xavi Simons, who sort of scored right into his path. Kings, Van der Vaart's been waxing lyrically about Gravenberch. He obviously said that he thinks he's a better player than Jude Bellingham, which I think is a massive shout, because Jude obviously was the most touted midfielder in the world the past couple years before he went to Madrid. And obviously he's been great at Madrid, but he's been picking up a couple injuries. What did you make of Ryan Gravenberch's performance? Even if you just saw the clip, you know, what are your thoughts in general on Gravenberch's potential and how he's shown it so far these first 3 games?
To be fair, when they first said, oh, we're looking for Zubimendi, and it was like, okay, we're going to get a player in, then they said, like, well, he's not moving, so we're going to stick with what we got, basically. And it's like, right, okay, then. And then they said Gravenberch is going to play in this possibly double pivot or whatever. He's going to play further back. It's like, that's fine. Let's see how he goes. I've got to give him credit, because I've been surprised, because I've been a little bit, it's harsh to say disappointed with him so far. He's had flashes of some brilliance, but then other times he's just kind of not really cut it. And yet so far, playing in the position he is at the moment for Liverpool looks very, very promising. And maybe the coaches know more than what we give him credit for in the end, because they see him week in, week out, obviously in training. So maybe they're doing their job better than what we can see just watching the odd game on TV. As for the game, I have seen the goal, same as I've seen, sorry, not the goal, the pass, same as I've seen Trent's pass. Very similar, actually, cross-field, fantastic effort. And yes, the player really should have gone there and scored. And I mean, it was a hell of a vision for us, you know, for a start, to see, can I even hit that and get it right? And it was so spot on. It was like, that was amazing. And if he can continue to build and get confidence up, I just hope, like I was saying about Trent, that, you know, people don't get on his back and start knocking him down because he gets too big for his boots. Hopefully he's just going to quietly do his job, get on with it. And if he does it for the Netherlands as well, great. And if he can replicate that kind of form continuously for Liverpool, then I think he's got a big future, because obviously Slot and the management team seem to put that trust into him to say, you can do this. So let's see, you know, hopefully it's going to continue after the international break now, like he did the first few games, and you know, I think it's promising so far.
Jason actually corrected me there. Yeah. I thought it clicked off. Yeah, so Jay's correcting me there. It was actually 2-2, not 2-1. I don't know why I thought it was 2-1. I think my brain just completely forgot one of the goals. I'm pretty sure it was the Dumfries goal that I completely forgot that they had scored. Anyways, but yeah, Gravenberch has been amazing, and I think that the Zubimendi not coming in has made it more that Slot's going to have to ride Gravenberch a bit. I think if Zubimendi still came in, they probably still have played him as a 6. I think that would have been just maybe a little bit more rotation in the mix. But I think it's interesting that, that Gravenberch is someone who last year was very much slated by Ronald Koeman and was slated by the Dutch media. But this year with Rafa van der Vaart and the being reintroduced into this team after the Euros, he has been given a lot more praise in this side. And I think that he has shown that with that positive praise, he has come on leaps and bounds. I think part of that is the fact that Klopp kind of brought him in and already ingratiated him to the squad and built up his fitness and coached him a lot last year, even though I think that he's going to have a lot more coaching with Slot in a more positional sense. But yeah, no, it's amazing to watch. Dylan, what are your thoughts on Gravenberch so far, his performances? And I mean, obviously we were obviously looking at Martin Zubimendi. They were looking at a midfielder. Do you think that they'll still be looking for a midfielder even with Gravenberch's performances, or do you think that they might look to do another player?
I mean, he's been fantastic. First that game against United, he was outstanding. He was brilliant against United. He was all over the pitch, doing essentially what a number 6 should be doing. I still think they will go. I don't know if it'll be Zubimendi, but I feel that they still might go for a 6. But at the moment, I'm quite happy with him in that position. I think Slot's, like you said, Klopp has sort of brought him into Liverpool, and he's had that tuition under Klopp, but he didn't really. Very rarely did you see him play 3 or 4 games on the run, and he didn't really get that long run in the team. He's played the first 3 games for us, and he's been brilliant. And I think if he keeps starting and he keeps playing the way he does, I don't think. The question then becomes not who are we going to get as a 6, but do we need a 6? That is the overall question. If he keeps doing how as well as he is. But yeah, can't fault him at all. He's been outstanding. He's playing a position that he's not his natural position, but obviously he's young enough to be molded into that position. He's still only 22, so he's young enough to be sort of taught that position and shown how to be that. And then in 2 or 3 years' time, what's to say that he's not the best number 6 that anyone could want?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And I think Jim Hughes had said, I don't know if they'll go for someone who is a strict number 6. There might be a situation where the next midfielder they buy is someone who I've said for the past couple of years, they're trying to get players that can do 6, 8, or 10, that at one point or another, they're either covering a 6 position or they're in the attacking 10 or making some sort of tactical adjustment. Because I think what Arne Slot does is that he does kind of a mix of a Klopp Benitez thing where he has his principles and philosophies, but I think he's making more tactical changes, and there's been a bigger emphasis on tactical work and training sessions with the team, so that if you look the difference between Ipswich, Brentford, and United, even though they're all setting up roughly kind of the same, everyone is doing slightly different jobs in that game. In the United game, McAllister's a little bit deeper, Gravenberch is a little bit more forward. In Brentford, McAllister was more forward, Gravenberch was more deeper. So I think there's very much this idea of positionality is a bit more fluid and that it could change game by game basis. Kev, I'm going to come to you, transition to our next topic. Harvey Elliott got an injury. Sadly, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, it looks like, which would mean that he's most likely going to be back in the end of October after the next international break. So he's going to miss the next 7 games. It is a broken foot, so it's one of those situations where it's an injury you have to be careful with. It could get worse. It could heal better. And Harvey's been unlucky with injuries before in the past. He never gets a small injury. It's always a big one with his ankle and now with his foot. One, I mean, how gutted are you for him? I really like Harvey Elliott. I think he's shown his quality a lot. I think he's in a weird position because he hasn't played a lot of games for Slot, that Slot has no loyalty to him. But you obviously can see the quality that he has. Do you think we're a little short in that attacking 10 position? I think we'll probably be fine as long as there's no other injuries, big long-term injuries within the midfield positions, because we have 7 games coming up. Or do you think this is something they're going to have to potentially address in January?
A loaded question. I would, I would agree with the first part of it. To be honest, myself, I think it's a shame for Harvey because he has that enthusiasm that you need as a footballer. He has a desire to play regardless if he's on the pitch or as a sub. He gives you that energy, and it's a shame for him that it's under Slaughter hasn't started as well as what he was open to. But then if you add in the fact that we've got Chiesa in and the front six now, which is, what is it, Nunes, Jota, Gakpo, Salah, Chiesa, who have I missed? Diaz.
Diaz, yeah.
It makes me think that number 10 position may not be that much of an issue with the players that we've got in the attacking sense and in midfield as well. And especially if you think about it, by the time we get to obviously the next 7 games, it's not like we're playing like Christmas period where you're playing 8 games in a matter of a week or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's doable and it's able to cope. I think we've got players who can cope with that. The only problem you got with Elliot now is that how far down the pecking order does he fall during his injury, and that's a worrying for him because there will be something on his part to try and get back as quickly as possible, because the longer he stays out and how well this team's playing at the minute will then deem how far down the pecking order he's got to come from, and it's hard to do because we know he's capable of doing it. It's just a shame that and it just shows with football that certain injuries at certain times don't actually help people. They can negate people from moving forward, and I hope that doesn't happen with Harvey. I doubt it will. I think he'll understand. I think Slot's not stupid. I think he knows he's got to play there. It's unfortunate that it's coming at a time where he hasn't been able to see him play. But apart from that, I think we will cope.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can cope. And honestly, for Harvey, if he's going to get an injury, this is probably the least treacherous period because, so I'm just going to read off the teams we're going to be facing. So it's Forest at home, Milan away, AC Milan away, AFC Bournemouth at home, West Ham at home. That's the EFL, the Carabao Cup game. Wolves away, Bologna at home, Palace away. The only 2 games that really make me nervous are Palace away and Wolves away. I don't think Wolves are that good, but it's Wolverhampton, and no one likes to go to Wolverhampton. I like even the player from Chelsea said this place is terrible. Why are we going here? So no one should go live in Wolverhampton. It feels like a punishment. I feel sorry for Gary O'Neill. I'm sorry for anyone watching this that is from Wolverhampton. So please do not take this seriously. And then we have Palace away Saturday, October the 5th, and that's the last game before the international break. And if you remember last year, Harvey Elliott was the player that turned the game on its head. We were absolutely terrible. We should have lost the game. And he's the one who helped pull that win out of the fire. And I think this was the same time that Arsenal had like lost 2 games on the bounce or 3 games on the bounce. And we were really kicking on at that point. I think we'll miss Elliott just as an option potentially for those games, but it's definitely the least treacherous Champions League and league fixtures. But obviously at this point we're 3 wins out of 3 with no goals conceded. We want to keep up that pressure not only on the league title but also with the new Champions League format. We don't know what it's going to be like with 8 teams, so it is important to still get as many wins under your belt as possible, especially for Arne Slot, and Elliott would have helped with that, even if I do think we'll be okay. Kings, so out of those next matches, Forest is our next one coming up at home. I don't know if you've watched a lot of Notts Forest this year. Are you really worried about them? I mean, I'm not. I think that as the team stands, none of these teams really terrify me in any sense, but that doesn't mean we couldn't lose a game, because we're going from Forest to Milan essentially by that Tuesday. It's going to be a lot of football the next couple of games. Are you excited for it? Are you nervous at all? Or is there any player particularly that you think that this is their moment to shine now that Elliott is out?
To be honest, it's like I said, we've got such a good forward line, we think, at the moment anyway. Whether he's going to be missed that badly, I don't think so. It's a shame for the lad because at the end of the day, when he does play, I think he's a very good player. So but again, like I said, it's probably the right time. It's like it's early in the season. If he's going to have an injury, he's out for a few weeks. Hopefully, this is the one and he's done. Chiesa probably could take his place. And the problem for Elliot is if he comes in and he does really well and makes Slot think, well, actually, for the next 4 or 5 games, I'm not going to drop him because he's playing really good, then again, he drops further down the pecking order. I'm just copying Kev, to be honest, tonight. He'll go down the pecking order, and it is difficult to get back in. A new manager looks at these players and then goes, right, and we've seen it time and time again, you get a star player or a really good player at a club, they change manager, and then that player starts to fade a little bit because they favour other players instead and different systems slightly. And I hope that isn't the case for Harvey because I think he's a really good player in the use of a squad. He's not going to be a constant first team starter, is he? But as a squad player, he's a very good player, and he's very good at helping the team sometimes when they really need it. Looking at the games coming up, it's going to sound hopefully not too big. I'm not really worried about Forest. I think Liverpool, if they've got the proper credentials to move forward and maybe go and push Man City this season and Arsenal, then teams like Forest should be easy enough, as we know on paper. But after that, you see it sometimes and you think, well, actually, you should have done that, but they didn't. But I don't think Forest will be too much of an issue. Some of the other games, Milan, that's a tough one. And Bournemouth and West Ham. It's like, I think they'll be okay. It's looking like he's going to be back from his fractured foot. Maybe the Chelsea game, if everything goes to plan after the international break now. It goes back to what I said earlier. See, I don't like the players going out for internationals because they get injured for their own team, and then it's difficult. But I don't think we'll miss him that much. I just hope that it doesn't psychologically make him think, oh, I'm going to struggle here, and then his performance maybe isn't good enough to get back into the squad and then into the side. But I think there's someone else to step in, like Chiesa or Gakpo maybe can come in and he rearrange the front, and it just somebody else takes their chance, then he could find it's a bit of a wait to get back in.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that Curtis Jones hasn't played. He's been injured with a groin injury, but he's going to be back. Chiesa should make the bench for Saturday, and Wataru Endo hasn't played many minutes. Now, the one downside is the fact that McAllister ended up missing the Colombia game for Argentina, so that might be a situation where he's not available for Saturday, not available for Milan, but available for the week after. So we are in that first sticky period where injuries are going to have to be maintained, and obviously, pending any red cards or any suspensions or cards. But I agree with you. I think we're good, and there's other opportunities for players to step up. I'm not worried about Harvey Elliott psychologically. I think he's come through a lot very quickly. Obviously, that foot injury like 2 years ago was pretty horrible. I think it would be 3 years ago now, and he was able to come through that. I agree with you that it may take some time for him to become a more regular fixture in this team, but I think we're now in a situation with football where that coaches want they want a 21 to 23 man squad. Everyone's going to be played, and that's what you're going to need for all these games, because at this point, the Champions League format is now essentially a European Super League. I know they don't want to call it that. They made a joke about that, but that is what it is. It is literally in a league format. That is how they're playing it. And there's going to be more and more and more games tacked on. There's not going to be less. I do want to say that the FA and the EFL have tried to make it less stringent for the EFL Cup and the FA Cup, trying to make less replays, less two-legged semifinals or two-legged games. But again, that only benefits the Premier League. It's not as beneficial to obviously the lower leagues who can use that extra game revenue to keep them sustainable. But that's league fixtures, league structure and stuff out of the way. We can always come back to that at a later date. Dylan, so I want to shift to you. So like I said, McAllister looks like he's probably injured as well, but we have Jones, Endo, Morton and Trey potentially to make the step up. Obviously, I feel like if we're throwing Trey Neone in for Forest, it's probably not the best situation. But again, we played Forest. I think it was a Forest away, Forest at home with Bobby Clark in the midfield. So, we have been able to like make the squad work. And obviously, when you have Mo Salah, Alisson Becker, and Virgil van Dijk, you're going to beat 90% of the teams in world football. Doesn't matter who else is playing the positions. Is there any player you think that can make that step up now that it looks like Elliott's going to be out? And let's say that McAllister's out for this weekend. Is there a player you're looking at saying like, all right, now it's your turn to go and take that shirt, that make that position your own?
Yeah, I'd probably like to see Endo back in, if I'm honest. Bit of experience, he's not every game last season, but he did show in a lot of games last season. He did show some class. He was at points probably one of our best players in some games last season in that position. So obviously, if McAllister is likely not going to be playing, I think it's too early in the season to be throwing someone like Tyler Morton in and saying, right, go and make a name for yourself. There's a lot of pressure there. I mean, I know it's been done. Other youngsters have done it, but I think he needs to think of putting Endo back in with Grav, see how they play together. I think with 7 games coming up, there's going to be a lot of rotation, and I agree with what you've said. If you're going to get injured, the start of the season is probably the best time if you're going to have to choose a time, because you can get back in and then work your way back in. But unfortunately, I think for Elliot, it's come at a time where we've got 7 games and there's likely to be a lot of rotation. So he's going to, like Kev said, he's going to be down that pecking order, and he's going to have players ahead of him. He's going to have to prove himself. But going back to initially what you asked, and I think Endo would be a good option to throw in. He's got a little bit of experience. He's obviously played against Forest last season, so he knows what he needs to do, and it'd help just keep Gravenberch as well. Give him that space that he knows that Endo's covering as well if needs be.
I will say though to what you just said there, I do think that the West Ham game may be a good option to get Morton and potentially Trey Neone some minutes, because that EFL game is probably the least important of all these games. It is West Ham. It is at home. There are going to be first teamers that are going to get minutes there. So I think we're just going to have to accept that, regardless of like the way the way the teams work out through those games. But of those two, if you had to not throw one player, but if you had to, would you be more comfortable, say, Tyler Morton starting at home? Let's say starting. Would you feel more comfortable with Tyler Morton coming on at Bologna at home for the Champions League, or Trey Neone at this point? Just hypothesizing, if a player has to come in for, let's say, 30 minutes to 45 minutes, regardless of the situation, who do you feel more comfortable with at this moment?
I think Tyler Morton. He's got that little bit more experience than Neone. It would be unfair, I think, to bring Neone on in a situation where, throw him on in a game where potentially maybe, you're away, you're in Italy away, and you need a goal, and you've got to bring either one of those two on. It's a lot of pressure to bring him on into that situation. I think Morton's proven he's got the experience, and I think he will get games this season, like you said, EFL Cup, maybe some FA Cup games, maybe some of the, depending on how the Champions League run goes, maybe towards the end of the fixture list there, maybe some European experience. But yeah, I think Morton's got that little bit more experience than Neone at the moment, so I'd be more comfortable having him come in.
Yeah, and I think it's important for everyone who, if you don't remember this, Tyler Morton actually has experience starting in the Champions League. So that was 2-3 years ago at this point. So he was much younger and much less developed as a footballer. So if Tyler Morton has to come in and deputize for a game or two, it's not the end of the world. And he's obviously shown his quality. And with Arne's slot and slot system, there's less obvious weaknesses in it compared to the way Klopp was having his players set up, or where we were at in that development of the second Liverpool team. So I would feel less worried if we have to do some jiggery pokery with our side and throw a few players in that maybe you were not expecting for a game or two. All right. So before we go into our last topic, which is looking at the Champions League and kind of a more format, remember to smash those likes, subscribes, get your comments in. James has been blowing up my comments so much, and I very much appreciate it, Jay. And I will be looking over your comments, guys. We go through and try to get some questions at the end. So Paul, real quick, just to get through, how did he do for Hungary? He did very well. Hungary had a very bad game against Germany, and then he had a very good second game for the Hungary. Not as Dom's always going to be the captain, so he's always going to be doing the job of a 10, an 8, and a 6, and the striker. He's going to be doing all the jobs for Hungary going forward. But he did very well, and I think that what we're seeing, and I've said this before, I think Szoboszlai is kind of one of those players where he's going to be great from like start of the season to December. But after December, he will probably be a player that has a worse back end, but he's a good front runner. All right, so Kev, I'm going to come to you, and we're going to start our last topic in general. So, new Champions League format. It's not like the old one. I think some of us are still coming to grips with it. Maybe it's just me, but I think I have a good foundational understanding of the whole format. We're playing 8 teams. We're not playing any of the teams twice. It's a league format. So even though I just called it a Super League and UEFA doesn't like that, that's what it is. It's essentially a European Super League as things stand. Milan and Bologna, 2 teams we should beat, in my opinion. AC Milan has some good players, but we beat them with Nat Phillips at center back doing a Cruyff turn. We have obviously a very strong squad, I think, from our first to our 23rd player, even with Harvey Elliott out for till coming out, like Jamie Hughes mentioned with the Paul Gorst article or quotation, at least October 20th. How many games do you think Liverpool need to win in order to qualify for the round of 16? Because if I remember correctly, it's the top 8 teams that automatically qualify for the round of 16, and then the ones after that have to do a playoff game. So I'm just gonna speculate, and then I'll turn it over to you. I think Liverpool are gonna have to win at least 6, and in that 6, you're playing Milan away, Bologna at home. Let me see here: Madrid at home, Leverkusen at home, Leverkusen at home, Girona away. And who am I missing here? Lille at home, Leipzig away. Yeah. So there are 2 or 3 teams in there that you could in the past have said, oh, we can have a draw and it's fine. Or if it's like a 1-0 loss, not the end of the world. How many games do you think Liverpool need to win out of their 8 to automatically qualify?
To automatically qualify 8. Because I do think that, I'll be honest, it's not. It is doable. I've got a feeling we'll win probably 6 or 7 of them, and maybe draw 1 or 2. But for me, if you want to automatically qualify, you've got to win all 8. For me personally, and that puts you in a good stead then to move forward, and it will do. If that's what you want, that aim for the stars. Don't aim for the ceiling. That's what you need to do. And it is quite capable. If you look at the Madrid game, that's at home. Bayer Leverkusen's at home, so the crowd will be up for those 2 games. It'll be, and then you look at all the things that are going around. So can I say with Leipzig, you've got Alonso with Leverkusen, you've got our traditional game against Madrid. It is, there's loads of things going on with that. We got Girona, you got Lille. I think it can be doable. And if we go into that Madrid game, it'll be similar to when we played City, when we played Madrid, then we went to United in the 08-09 season, because I think we played City at the end after the Madrid game. So, it'll breed us confidence if we beat Madrid, and this is probably the best time to play Madrid, because over 2 legs they've shown that they are quite capable to win. But in the group games, they have had in recent times they've done well, but they are you can get at them in the early stages. That may change with the philosophy now, and how it looks now is that everyone's fighting to be in that top 8. But to be in that top 8, you're going to have to look to be either 7 or 8 games for me. I don't know if you agree with that, Dan.
No, I fear that you are correct in that assessment. In years gone by with the Champions League format with 4 teams, if you won 3, you probably qualified, and it didn't really matter if you were first or second in your group. It was more about qualifying, and usually it's the people who finish second usually are the ones who go on and win, because if you beat your round of 16 opponent. Normally, you sometimes get an easier track in the draw. I think with the way the format is now, if you want to be in that top 8, you probably are going to have to win 7 or 8 of your games, which doesn't leave a whole lot of room for error. And that's just to not get the extra playoff game. And that it's more about managing league congestion, because I'm looking at their schedule overall. And right now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in November, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in December. And that's not including, potential other EFL games in there as well. So, it's from essentially when we get back from the October international break, and we have that next run in November. It's a very short run, but it's a very quick run with a lot of games. From November to January, it doesn't stop. That's for me the more worrying thing, is that if you're having to win all those games, from November 23rd, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games. 11 games from November 23rd to January 4th. Again, not counting EFL games in there, potential EFL games in there as well. The Carabao Cup, by the way. I keep calling it the EFL Cup like it doesn't have a sponsor. It is the Carabao Cup, but it's changed its name so many times I forget. It was the Capital One Cup, the Coke Cup, the Milk Cup. It was called the EFL Cup one year, and they should have just kept it that way. But that's a lot of games, and that's why in my mind I'm like, there in a regular Champions League format, you should be able to say we'll just get a draw away against Girona, we'll be fine. Or if it's Lille at home, you can rotate a squad, and if it's a 0-0 or 0-1. You've already qualified, it doesn't really matter. And we have to go to PSV Eindhoven at the end of January. So even by January 4th, you haven't played all of your Champions League games. You've only played 6 of them. So you still have 2 more you have to play at the end of January. So yeah, that was a little bit, I know it was a bit long of a side tangent, but that's just to highlight just the absolute insanity of the new UEFA format, because normally if you're qualified or not by November. Kings, I'll throw it to you. My cat in the background, she's coming down to say hi to everyone. Say hi, Cleo. She's so cute. Kings, I'll throw it to you. Do you think we need to win about 6 games like I predict, or are you thinking more 7, 8 around Kev's line of thinking?
Well, I'd like to say we're going to win them all, but it's probably going to be, I just guess, I think we'll win about 6. Whether you can finish the top of the whole thing, I don't know. Will they finish in the top 8? Yes, I'm very confident they'll finish in the top first 8. As for the new format, I got to be honest, yes, it has revitalized my thoughts on it, because the Champions League was getting boring. I hate the thing, for a start, it's called the Champions League, because, okay, Liverpool didn't win the league. They're not the champions. They're in it. It should be called the European Cup. And that's all
Bring
I ever
back
call
the
it,
old,
to be honest.
bring back the old European Cup format. Only the winners get to go in. Invitational only. Madrid in the 50s.
It's the same trophy. It's still the European Cup when I look at it. But I think this new format is actually, well, I hope it's going to revitalize it. I'm excited for the fact that they're playing 8 different teams, and not just, as you say, you play 2 or 3 games, then you go, oh, we'll put the kids out for the last one because we don't need to, and we've got Man City on the Sunday kind of thing, and we don't need to play a full strength side, and it devalues the competition. And we all know it happened by all the top sides. As soon as they qualified, they'd say, well, we don't need to bother so much. This way, it keeps you on your toes. You've got to play, your best way, unless Liverpool are 6 for 6, no problem. Then they can probably say, oh, we're looking at the results, we're definitely going to be in the top 8. Yeah, they might relax a little bit. But I think by having this where you play different teams all the time instead of home and away, just gives you different opposition potentially coming to Anfield, different teams to go and visit for a change instead of the same old. And I'm quite excited for it. So hopefully, I know afterwards, once they qualify through, it gets back to the usual. They just play each other and it's knockouts all the way to the final. But they're trying. It is a mini Super League. Whether UEFA and FIFA and all that like to talk about it, hard luck. That's what it is. But yeah, I am excited for it. And I think they're probably going to win about 6. I'd like them to win all 8 and finish, clear at the top of this Super League. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I actually agree with Cam that we can win all 8. I just think in my mind that the way the schedule falls, especially for November, I would think that
Yeah,
6 is
same for me,
probably
yeah.
the most likely. Yeah. And I think that 6 is probably the most likely outcome. But, I'm hoping I would agree with Kevin. I don't think Arne Slot's looking at it's like, all right, boys, we're only going to win 6 here. He's not Eric Ten Hag. He's not saying you're not good enough to beat any of these teams. You just need to live in the reality that United are crap now. Slot is very much going to approach us from 8 of 8, and we could very much win 8 of 8. I think we're equal, if not better, than almost all those teams in there. I mean, obviously Madrid have Kylian Mbappe, which we'll talk about at the end of the stream. And you can just get Mbappe because that's just the way it works sometimes. But I do think we can beat Madrid, especially now in this group stage. And I do think if they get the ghost of Madrid behind them, because we have not beaten Real Madrid since, was it 08-09, Kev? Was it the last time we beat Madrid? Has it been that long now?
08-09.
08-09. Yeah. So, I think if Liverpool can get the ghost of Madrid off their back from a psychological point of view, just because some of those players have been around since the 2017-18 UEFA Cup where we lost 3-1, obviously, I think that will go very well for their confidence. And I think that might be the turning point for a lot of them mentally of like, oh, we can actually, we can go on and win the UEFA, the Champions League, or maybe even the league. Dylan, I'll come back to you. Your thoughts on the league format, the new Champions League format. Is there any game particular that you are interested in outside of the Madrid game? Because obviously the Madrid game at home is going to be interesting. For me, I think it's going to be the Leverkusen game just because it's going to be Xabi coming back home for the first time since he was at Madrid. I think he was at Madrid in 2014. So it's going to be interesting to see him back at Anfield as a coach. And obviously Liverpool were interested in bringing him in over the summer. But is there any other game outside of Madrid that you're interested in seeing? And are you excited like Kings is? I do agree the fact that it is going to be interesting because teams are going to have to essentially play full strength teams up until the 7th or 8th game, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Kings and Kev said and yourself have said. The way they've set it up with where you're playing 8 different teams, I think that is bringing a lot of new life into it, where it was getting boring, where you get 3 teams home and away, and 9 times out of 10 it's the same teams playing each other in the group stage. You get the same teams, but the way I look at it is, if you don't win all your games or you don't finish in that top 8, you could potentially finish 10th and play the team that finished 24th, and they beat you, and then you go out, and that's what I don't like, that part of the format. It's very, you could be one of the worst teams in it and get a lucky 2 games, win your home leg and draw your away leg, and you're through. It just doesn't make sense. But I do like the fact
I will say you guys get to suffer the American playoff format now. This is what I have to experience as an American sports fan. Now you guys know what it's like to have a playoff where you're one of the best teams and then you lose against this no-name team that was 8-8 and so bad. I didn't mean to interrupt your thought there. I'm just saying, like, America is now winning in the sports world.
But yeah, I mean, did it need to be 8 group stage games or 8 league games? I don't know. Would 6 have been still kept it at 6? Did they need to increase the amount of teams? I don't know. But yeah, the only exciting part for me is that you play a different team every time. So it's not just your home and away leg against 3 different teams and what have you. The game, Leverkusen is probably the game I'm looking forward to most. That one. Obviously, you've got Girona. We've going away to Girona. We've not played them before, so you've got Bologna as well. So there'll be some some new teams, new games. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the new format, though, to be honest.
Fair enough. Kev, are you going to catch any of those Champions League away games? Are you going to Bologna or Girona? Are you taking a holiday?
I'm going to Milan. I'll be in Milan on Tuesday via Prague. Leave on Monday, so take in Prague and then straight to Milan. But no, I think with the AC Milan one, we have like 4,500 fans, supporters that are allowed to go. So it's and with the San Siro meant to be falling down, well, they're moving out into the AC. The amount of times we played AC Milan and Inter Milan over the last couple of years, a lot of the hardcore lads who normally would go, I've already done that, and it's off their bucket list, so it's allowed the likes of the no marks like me to be able to jump on the bandwagon this time round. So no, I'm looking forward to it. Pretty exciting. Saves me getting an AC Milan into Milan ticket, derby ticket. At least I'll be in the San Siro. So so it's going to be a heavy 5 days. So we played Forest, and then I'm already thinking about fashion. It's the fashion show as well in Milan at the same time. So I've already joked that I may get an upgrade on my missus, but that didn't go down well with the missus when she heard me say that. That's the only one I'll be able to get to be honest. I don't have credits, and it's hard to get to the European aways, and the others are slightly smaller supporters allowed in. So much so, like Genoa will probably be about just over 1,000. So I'm fortunate to get to at least one. Like so.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. No, listen, congratulations. Anyone that's able to go to a classic European stadium, European nights like these don't happen for a lot of clubs. Just ask Everton supporters. So this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, Kev. That's awesome. Like, take plenty of pictures, please. I post them in the group chat. Make us all jealous. I'm living vicariously for you on Tuesday.
It will be inundated with loads, so I do apologize to our WhatsApp group in advance.
No apologies needed, Kev. So we're gonna move on into our last two quick topics real quick. So the news came out very recently that Liverpool had essentially agreed with a deal for Kylian Mbappe. And there was also apparently an alleged deal with a Mexican winger over the summer that collapsed for some reason. Kev, I'll come back to you about the Mbappe deal that was supposed to happen in 2022. One, how credible do you think it is? I think it's reasonably credible, but because these transfer stories always come out that X player is going to go to X team at some time and then something falls through. I think it's interesting that they tried to bring Mbappe in. I think that was kind of their big swing and miss when Madrid got Aurelien Tchouameni, that they just said, heck with it, let's just go buy the best player we can on the market at the time, because I think Mbappe had 1 year in his contract at that point. So to say, what if we give him this big package and we just try it and go all out next year one more time? And that was the summer, obviously, where everyone wanted like 30 midfielders when we had 9, and then suddenly we had 0, and we had Arthur Melo. So it was a very interesting summer in general. How credible do you think it is? And would that have been a laugh if we had gotten Kylian Mbappe 2 years ago?
To be honest, the rumours I've heard, it's probably the second time. I think 2018 was the first time, wasn't it? Where Jurgen was meant to be in New York, and Mbappe was coincidentally meeting LeBron James at Nike's headquarters in California. And they kind of had a meeting, and we've been in touch with his entourage. I think that we've always been heavily linked until the player comes out in his autobiography when he finishes and retires. Will we know how credible this will be? But it's one of many, as you say, and we've been inundated with loads. I keep reinterpreting one on our WhatsApp group every now and again when people talk about this, but which is the Michael Laudrup one, which fell through. But again, we can go through history and we can find a lot of players. Everton had Batistuta at one point and decided not to get him. If it wasn't for the volcano cloud, Lewandowski would have went to buy Blackburn Rovers. So there's loads over the years, and we're not the only one that have these players. I mean, everyone's got I've got those, a few of them. It would have been nice if we would have got Mbappe. It would have been fantastic. I think we would have made a lot of commercial sense. I think our actual profits on our actual turnover with Nike would have gone through the roof if we would have got Mbappe. And we would have got, although it was 168 million, I think we would have probably got about 70% that back through shirt sales alone and commercial deals that we would have had done. So, would it been doable? I don't know. It goes against the FHG in group. This wouldn't be done. It's there's loads of commercial markets that could have been done with Mbappe. I would have loved him to have signed. I think even when he was at Monaco, I wanted us to go in and get him then. For how good he was then. But it never happens. We move on to the next one, and it's easy to say that now, 2 years down the line, when we're crying out for money to be spent at the club, and we have people are still crying out for players and stuff. So it's one of many, as I say, Dan. But it is what it is. Unfortunately, he never came, so it's all based on ifs and buts now. So it would have been nice, because I would have liked to seen the negotiations with Real Madrid for him. And then out of what players we could have sucked out of them by giving them Mbappe. But we'll never know now, will we?
No, sadly, we will never know. And I feel like some people, like Mr. Charlie Webb in our chat, would have been happy having Kylian Mbappe lead the line rather than Darwin Nunez. Even though I feel like he would have also found a way to moan about Kylian Mbappe missing a 1-on-1v1 3 times in a game. Because it does happen occasionally. Kings, I'll throw it to you real quick. Obviously, the Mbappe thing didn't fall through. And like Kev said, I actually think it was a deal that made a lot of sense, because a lot of what FSG's entire football model comes down to one word, and that's value. And Kylian Mbappe as a value as a transfer would have been through the roof, not just because of sponsorship deals, but because Liverpool's contract with Nike made it that they got 25% of their revenue for the jersey sales. So if you got Kylian Mbappe, sales go through the roof, you make 25% of that back. It's one of the more unique deals in world football, because that's not how most shirt sponsorships work. They pay an upfront fee spread over a course of a couple of years, and the shirt manufacturer makes all the money. This is one in which Liverpool actually got some residuals on that negotiating. And yeah, I think it was a perfect time to try and get him. It's sad it didn't work out, but I'm going to change the question a little bit. Who would you have rather signed as a Liverpool player as a transfer that did not fall through? So we have Mbappe, we have Caicedo. Is there any player from our past that you would have taken for a transfer that did not end up working out?
That's a tough one. Now you put me right on the spot there. For the record, I would have taken Mbappe, obviously, but it would have been an interesting one, even with all the shirt sales and sponsorship they could have got around that, how it would have affected the PSR. Actually, overall, you kind of like, because it was a big outlay apparently, but as we all say, it didn't happen. So that's just one of those, finding somebody that you think, oh, he could have had instead. It's like, that's a tough one. I can't think off the top of my head. You really put me on the spot on that one. No, not off the top of my head. I can't think.
Diego Costa, like Alexis Sanchez, during like Rodgers, because we got Sanchez as a possibility that Brendan Rodgers would have stayed longer. We don't get Klopp if Diego Costa comes in, which Ian Graham mentioned in his book they really wanted. No, I mean that's perfectly fine. I not even Moises Caicedo. You're not on the Moises Caicedo train at all. You're like, God, we should have got Caicedo in. We would have won every trophy.
To be honest, I never look at players who should have come and think, what if, because they didn't come at the end of the day. So this thing with Mbappe, and it's good fun to talk about what could have been, but at the end of the day, it didn't come, and we went off in a completely different direction. And it's the ifs and buts of what might have been are really irrelevant at the end of the day, aren't they? It's like we've got what we've got, and we are where we are. It's nice to speculate of what it might have worked out as, but really, it's like, well, who wouldn't have wanted Mbappe at the time, and even now? But he's gone to Madrid, so it's like, well, if he doesn't cut it there, the door's always still open at Anfield. He can come and open arms, I'm sure.
Fair enough. Dylan, I'll throw the same question to you before we go into our score predictions for the next 2 games. So who, if any Liverpool transfer that didn't work out in the past couple of years, who would you have taken?
Depends how far back you want me to go, because
we'll go back to Benitez. We'll say 2005-06. We'll say
okay.
2005-06.
That's why I was thinking, because I think back in 2005 we were looking at Simao from Benfica. I think they just won the league and he was on fire, and it was a position that we were struggling in, left wing. We were really struggling for a left winger, and they went for him, and I think he was all but agreed, but Benfica wanted more and more money, and it never happened. And I think that would have solved Benitez's left winger issue at the time, and who knows, we might have won the Champions League again. Who knows? But that's one for me, because I think he was a class player as well. So that one's for me. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually that's one of the Champions League I never understand. I don't understand how Liverpool didn't win the '07 Champions League against Milan. That was the second time they faced Ancelotti because it was a much better team. It wasn't as good as an AC Milan. So that's one of those that I've always kind of been like it's one of those games I feel like if one or two players or one or two transfers happened differently or Benitez did that game a little bit differently, I think they should have won. In my opinion, but that's just me. All right, last one. Dylan, I'll start with you, and then we'll go counterclockwise, and I'll close this out. Score predictions for Forest at home and Milan away. Forest at home first. What's your score prediction?
I'm going to go 3-0 Liverpool. I'm going to go with a clean sheet again. I think we're just at the moment, if we can start firing like we have in the first 3 games, then yeah.
Who's your goal scorer?
Milan,
real quick?
I'm going to go Salah and Diaz again, and possibly Jota as well.
Fair enough.
Because I think they've been immense first 3 games. I'm going to go 2-0 away at Milan, I think.
2-0 away. Kev, who do you think? Fair enough.
I think it'll be 3-1 against Forest. And then away, I think we'll hopefully win 2-1.
2-1. Fair. Good. Kev saying we're starting to concede goals. Get Ellison out. Get Mamadashvili in. Kings, what's your score prediction for Forest away, Forest at home and Milan away?
Well, I'm going to echo Dylan for Forest and say 3-0. I do think they'll keep this clean sheet. Salah will get one. Don't know, probably a couple from Jota, I think, if he plays. And then for Milan, just to hopefully give Kev a smile on his face, while he's there. First visit to San Siro, I'll say 2-1 win. So I hopefully he'll put the pictures in there, with a nice happy smile with them because they've gone there and won. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually gonna flip it a little bit. I'm gonna say it's gonna be 2-0 at home to Forest. I thought against United we'd overperform. We did on our XG, though we could have scored 4 or 5 if Jota and Soboslai actually shot when they were 4 yards out with a pretty much open net. But they wanted to walk the ball in, which is fair enough. They were way better than United. I think it'll be 2-0 against Forest, and I'm gonna say 3-1 away to Milan. I think that was the score we had 2 years ago when we were in the Champions League. I think those scores, so that's where I'm going to go as well. I also think it'll be Jota and Salah will be the goal scorers. I wonder if Darwin Nunez will start against Milan away. I'm wondering when Slot will unleash the Darwin Nunez, or we'll ever get the Darwin Nunez that we have seen flashes of. I'm hoping it happens in the future, but we'll see. So yeah, I think that's it today, lads. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you everyone who's been watching on Twitter /X or YouTube. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. If you've been commenting on X, it does not come through on the stream. So make sure you hop over to YouTube if you want to get involved in the comment sections. I do try to respond to them and call them out as we go through the stream. We stream every day. Tomorrow, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 British Standard Time, or your local equivalent. From myself, Dan, from Kev, from Kings, and from Dylan, from the land of Merseyside and the beautiful country of Wales, we say thank you. Have a good evening, a good night, and a good morning. Ta-ta. Up the Reds. You'll never walk alone.